All righty, it's been a roller coaster ride of a signing day. Wouldn't be a normal signing day without that experience, and we're all here on Warchant TV to recap it and live through some things that are yet to come. I am flanked today by senior recruiting analyst Michael Langston, recruiting reporter Matt Lacerre. This is Warchant TV's Signing Day Central. Hit the like button, the subscribe button underneath this video, absolutely free. Everybody file in, move all the way to the end of the aisle. Please don't hoard any seats. There's plenty of room for everybody. Michael, we're going to start with some news that just came down. A decision was made, a flip decision that went Florida State's way, and that is another four-star has flipped to Florida State. He was considering the Florida Gators. Who am I talking about, Michael? Fill in the people.
Take Elsey from Jacksonville, Florida, a guy that they're certainly familiar with. Had him in for official, had him in unofficial. Certainly was loving the fact that, what FSU wanted to do with him as far as a receiver. They looked at him as a receiver, where other places, in Florida, the team he's committed to, look him more so as a tight end. So I think the position stuff really, helped FSU, but also just the visits when he's there and just, when he was there, just the atmosphere around it, Norvell and all that stuff, I think was a big positive that really ultimately helped, close the door. I know Florida went out there and said they put out there that they decided to go in a different direction, but we know how that, sometimes can be worded and worked. So some of it's like probably, we gave you like Tom said to me earlier, you gave you a timeline and they wanted to do it. And so you're in or you're out. And so I think there was obviously other discussions. I can't really speak on Florida, but I think from a Florida State perspective, they certainly coveted this. He was probably one of the more coveted receivers they were going after.
Boy, Matt, it seems like Florida State loves tall targets in the 2025 class. Is that fair to say? And how are you doing after a day's worth of work, sir?
Good. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm really tired. But yeah, they are going off of sorry. Norvell spoke at his press conference today and said, yeah, the size was a big deal. It was what they wanted to make this class and build this class around. Obviously, you got Jordan Scott, Tariq Mallory, Chase Lofton, Mario Nash. You got a lot of size here in this class. You could also include Tylen Coleman in that as well. But that was a very big factor when it came to building this class. I mean, you kind of saw it this year on the field with FSU. The plan was you get those small, fast guys so you could bomb it and run it. Obviously, that didn't work out. And they're still kind of going back to that big guy approach. You can jump up and actually grab the ball. Your Johnny Wilson, your Keon Coleman types, the ones that worked at wide receiver for Florida State in recent years.
So let me lay it down for you, everybody. Here's how this hour is going to go. Your questions on Warchant TV. File those in right now. Director Ben Spicer behind the scenes is going to put those in a nice, neat little section for me to pull from over the hour. This is your chance to ask Michael and Matt questions about what's going on today, what still needs to be done, somebody's paperwork in. I'm sure we're going to get questions like that coming up over the next hour. That's what we're going to do here soon. I do want to get to the big news in a moment. And forgive Matt if he has to bow out from time to time. He's running down news to get follow-up stories, context stories, background stories that you'll see on warchant.com coming in the next 24 hours to 48 hours. So if he just ducks off the screen, it's because, well, he's doing his primary job, which is being outstanding for the site. So, Michael, we're going to have to get to Ousmane Kromah, the four-star running back that Florida State flipped from Georgia earlier this afternoon. It was in the 2 o'clock hour. I remember it well. We were live here on Warchant TV during the Cameron show, and all hell broke loose in a good way for Florida State.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild.
It was insane because then there's another four-star flip that comes right behind it. But it was an entertaining afternoon for Florida State, but it's not quite done. So explain to me what's going on with Florida State's flip of an outstanding running back and where things stand at the moment.
Yeah, certainly we know that, Georgia certainly coveted him from the start. And I think I kind of compare it similar to what we'd heard with Tariq Mallory earlier in the day, where he was still talking to a team that we know that is very much in the picture with West Virginia. Kind of similar to, I still hear he's talking to Georgia as he's talking to FSU. So I think it's more just kind of that same thing, just conversation wise. But like I said, when these things usually happen, usually the team they commit to and there could be NIL situations they want to, to get finalized before they actually finish it off because they don't sign letter of intent anymore. They signed financial aid stuff. So I think it's probably just, some stuff with that. I don't think there's anything that I've got that it's like a cause of concern, but certainly you're concerned because he committed like 5 hours ago and stuff. But I think overall, I think it's just it's the process you have to go through, and he's talking to both of them, and I think that's kind of where we're at.
So we'll keep you updated. You never know; something might come of it here during this hour
Yep.
on Warchant TV. Matt, is there something you wanted to add to that? It looked like your eyes lit up for a second. Any context from your experience of covering Kromah today?
I mean, I had a theory. Maybe it's not really true because he hasn't really signed papers, but I had a theory that like the FSU media team just didn't have like the video ready. To be honest with you, that like they didn't know. So like that's still my theory, and I'm going to stick with it. And if if it goes through, I'm going to stick with that until the end.
There you go. All right.
I like that.
I know that folks over at Florida State at some point were assuming that the paperwork was in there. It's one of those things. It's one of those things, and now really there is no NLI or LOI. But when you get that information, you run with it. And here we are right now. Florida State's still looking to clear the final hurdle with Kromah from Georgia, another 4-star that they had flip right after. Which was outstanding. And this one felt like it might be more likely before it happened. But that's Boggs is his name, Jayvan Boggs, receiver who was a commit to UCF. Here's the artwork that Director Ben put together for the social media side.
Yeah.
Michael, what can you tell me about this particular flip? Because, again, this Florida State was on a run of flips today. They just completed one 10 minutes ago at a halftime of a high school basketball game. How about this receiver that was a UCF commit?
Yeah, probably one of the most productive players and receivers in the state of Florida is playing at Cocoa High School. Probably averaged like 2 touchdowns a game. Just a guy that was consistently one of the best playmakers, knows how to get in space. Certainly a big weapon as far as we talk about playmakers. I think he's every bit of that. And then there's a history with him and Gus. Him and Gus go way back, committed to him, and there was a strong connection there. And he's another one where we're waiting on the letter of intent that we haven't seen. But like I said, I know people when they see that, or not letter of intent, but just the papers, when the papers aren't in, there's a lot of factors when it comes to that. Some kids commit that day, then they sign the other stuff the following day. I mean, that's kind of usually how it works. So I know people's minds are racing, but it's like that's kind of what way it goes. In my experience of doing this with the NIL and stuff like that. Certainly, I'd feel more confident with this one just because of the history with his former head coach. Although with Kromah, he does have a really strong relationship with David Johnson, but I think still with this one, there's history behind it. So you would think that gets finalized probably quicker, I guess, than the other one. But overall, I think a tremendous playmaker that's going to help you right away. I mean, Tom, we talked about all these tall receivers, but this is one that's not as tall, but this is one that is really good in different spaces on the field. Like you could put him anywhere and he just finds that space. And then his ability after the catch is phenomenal. Great hands, certainly great speed, and a guy that I think immediately can help FSU in that wide receiver room. Kind of exactly the guy I felt like they needed as far as in this offense to really rejuvenate it.
Well, again, I probably should set the stage too. Matt's going to get reached out to, and if he needs to, he bows up. But Michael has his phone near him as well. So just because we're on camera does not mean that we're not going to be updated up to the second as we go till 8:00 Eastern time. I'm going to start with the questions in now. Robert in the chat, and thank you everybody for hopping in the chat and getting involved here on Warchant TV. Any of these guys instant impact dudes? Matt, I'm going to let you start. Is there anybody you think that could be an instant impact?
I think the obvious one is Jordan Scott, the 6'7" wide receiver from Northwest Mississippi Community College. Just because he's a JUCO guy, so he only has 2 years left of eligibility, you would like him to be able to, because he's more of a transfer, right? Technically, even though it's a signing class, so you would like him to come in right away and kind of do well. And he's that big body guy that you really need out of the class of the big body guys. This is like the A+ one because he's the biggest. So that's probably the one you want the most of. Norvell said he thought Kevin Wynn could. And also, I think Chase Lofton is probably a good one because he's got that size. It's going to be hard for him to transition a little bit, but you might see it like Amari Williams this year where he won't get a lot of playing time at the beginning, but you could see him as the season goes on next year kind of get some more. But also, with him having that not wide receiver, tight end group so packed in, because that's a pretty loaded room now, probably one of the most loaded on the team when it comes to young talent. He could probably sit out the year and be fine and develop well, because you have so many dudes, Landon Thomas, Amari Williams, and then maybe Tylen Coleman, another guy because he's a JUCO transfer. I said in the video when he committed last night that I think he needs to put on a little bit of strength to be able to get that early, but that's what tour duty's for here in the next few weeks.
All right, Michael, same question, but before I get to your answer to that question, Florida State has announced Tayshawn Gelsey's presence in the 2025 class. How do they do that, people ask? Well, they just put it on Twitter, and then it's like magic, and we can all talk about it. But the paperwork is in. That tweet is out there circulating now, so the flip is complete. The paperwork is in. We're going to be watching for the rest of them over the course of this hour. Michael, same question. Instant impact type players, who do you think, if any, in the 25 class?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. If I hate bringing up this same guy that we're already talking about, Ousmane Kromah. I mean, my God, like you watch this guy. To me, there's like no. I saw this guy for like 3 years. Watched him in person. This guy's going to play immediately. I'm not going to say he's going to be starting, but he has a different aspect to him that's different from any other, I think, running back they have. Yeah, you have Cam Davis. He's strong, but this is one that's really flexible. He's taller. He's bigger. He's wider. He's a very good receiver. That's the one thing I think people forget about O is that he is so good as a pass catcher. And then his physical ability, how he breaks tackles is unreal. So I think certainly he'd be the first guy that just, pops in my head. I'd probably agree with Matt on the Jordan Scott one, just because he seems to be. You would think he's more defined because he's been in the JUCO ranks that bring 6'7". They'll have a lot of 6'7" guys on their team. So the other ones are young and they're going to have to take some time to kind of filter their way in. I do agree with Coach Norvell on the Kevin Wynn one. I've said this before, and I did when we did the commit video that I felt like he reminds me a lot of Derek Nanati when I watch him. There's a lot of stuff that he does Nanati like, very quick off the ball. Hands are very violent. Really causes a lot of havoc, and those are the guys that you want to get on the field very early. And we saw that with Derek. That Derek played very early. If you watch a lot of his career, so I think certainly Kevin would definitely, I think, fit in that category. And I think from a young standpoint, if you're looking for a young guy that might flash to you, I think that the Jayvan Boggs kid is certainly one that you would have to watch.
All right, I'm going to stay with Kevin Wynn for a second because they had to do some serious work to make sure that the commitment stayed committed to Florida State. So let's see. Matt, I'll lead with you. What do you think? Just tell me about the background, because I think you were there in College Town when he committed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's like, oh, I already did. I remember that. It was like everybody's like, wait, what? So tell me about the competition for Wynn, and then for your perspective covering him over the last year.
Yeah, so thank you to Jeremy Johnson at Dogs HQ and on 3. He was at the commitment or at his signing ceremony and got us an interview from Kevin Wynn right after. It was very helpful. That's on the site now. But yeah, he said it was like a roller coaster, and the last few weeks were very hectic. He said there was a lot of stuff outside of football coming into the equation, and he did admit that at one point he was like, yeah, maybe I should go somewhere else. I'm going to assume that was South Carolina because that's what we all thought for a few weeks leading up to it. But at the end of the day, he said he decided at 3 a.m. last night that it was going to be Florida State. Norvell said during his press conference that he talked to Kevin late last night. I don't know if that was at 3 a.m. or when that was, but probably not far off. And that's when he really made his decision, was around then. And he said it's just because Florida State's been on him this whole time. I want to say they were the first offer. If not, they were one of the first offers. Kevin Wynn this whole time has been really awesome. He's always been one of the best interviews because he's more the guy that you're not really asking questions to. It's more of a conversation with, and he's really good at that. That's why when he committed in College Town, and that was that was weird because he came down, he's hugging Fuller, even though Fuller's not here anymore. He's hugging Fuller, and we're like, did he just – we think he did. And then we ask him a decision timeline, and he's like, oh, I just did. And then afterwards, he's like, can you guys not put that out yet? We're like, yeah, sure. So I think it's just that bond has always been so good. I mean, I remember I can't remember what it was, but there was a visit weekend. I think it was a game because the construction wasn't happening yet. So a game last year. And And one of the assistants came up before Kevin Wynn arrived and was like, have you seen his film? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he goes, you need to watch that now because it's so good. And then I watched it. I was like, wow, yeah, hopefully they land this kid. And they kept the relationship up for a long time. We're able to stick it to it all the way to the end.
Michael, South Carolina was in the running. I know Texas was around that, his name for a long time, and anytime Texas is involved. So also Alabama, like tell me what factors, what schools he was looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly Georgia, South Carolina for me when I looked down. I mean, he took a visit to Texas, but I didn't really consider them like a heavy, I guess, issue as far as FSU. It was different times where I first thought like South Carolina. I even told people like even told the video when you watch my video, like I really thought he was probably going to South Carolina the way it was going. FSU's experiencing a really rough year. It's tough. I mean, these other teams are doing well. You see South Carolina with their defense playing really well. Their defense looks good in games, and FSU looks like what they look like. So it's like, I really felt like at that time, South Carolina, kind of late in the year, and then we heard a lot more buzz with Georgia, last night. I don't know how much I buy into that, just because I felt like South Carolina felt like there was more of a they coveted them, and the relationship was a little bit stronger. So I'd probably say FSU, South Carolina, but I mean, the buzz was there with Georgia, so it came from somewhere. But overall, great pick. His dad's a big FSU fan. I remember the first time I interviewed him, he talked about his dad being a big FSU fan, and the thing that's interesting to me about this is like, there's been talk of is Odell going to stay? Is Odell going to retire? Is Odell going to do this? And he was a big believer in Odell, so makes me curious to see how that dynamic's going to work with potentially the new defensive line coach coming in, and just kind of what that's role going to be, as far as Odell. But he's very tight with Odell. He really likes what Odell does development wise. So maybe regardless whether he's still not retiring or he goes into a different role, I think it sounds like he was going to be he's going to be involved in kind of Kevin's development.
Well, go ahead.
I will say that during Norvell's press conference, he did give credit to Odell for the recruitment, that he did a good job. And he started off by saying he wasn't going to make any coaching announcements. But, if he's still mentioning Odell, read into that as you want. That with them bringing in a new defensive line coach, that makes me think he's going to be on the staff some way or another.
Well, you know what? If it is, in fact, as the Florida State is expected to sign Terrence Knighton, a.k.a. Pot Roast, a.k.a. Mutton Chop, as their next defensive line coach, send those guys on the road. I would pay whatever it takes as a Florida State booster to be able to sit down with Odell and Knighton just to hear them talk about interior defensive line play. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, I was like, my wife was actually joking when she's like, did you hear who the defensive line coach that could come in? His nickname is Pot Roast. She's like, that's the most awesome thing in the world. I was like, yeah, imagine that, using it in the living rooms. Giving the reason why I'm curious when I meet him of kind of how that came about. That nickname. It's not a normal nickname.
It has to be a good story. I mean, he did play at 355 in the NFL, so I'm sure he enjoyed a lot of things, but pot roast must be one of them. All right, let's go. I asked Matt first last time. We're going to go snake draft here. So Michael Seminoles FTW says, are we done yet with flips? What do you think for this cycle?
No, they're not done, I don't think. I think there's at least one more. And I think people that follow the tea leaves of what we mentioned on the PRB and stuff, I think they can kind of figure it out. But I don't think they're done. I will admit I did not expect this many. Now I did expect the quarterback they got from Auburn, Shamar Ono. I did think that was likely going to happen. I'd had heard about that, and then the other ones, I think both me and Matt probably thought that those were likely that they're going to happen because they visited FSU, but I think the level of how many, it's got to be a record, Tom, as far as what they did in one class that I can remember in covering recruiting. So, incredible year just in a short time. Where a lot of these guys, you basically are coming off a really, really historically bad season, and you're still finding a way to resonate the vision with these recruits. I think is very impressive. I don't care if they're a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. I mean, they're still recruits, and you still have to resonate with them of your vision of what you're doing. And I think, to me, that's the big takeaway for me of this day so far. And we still got 2 more days because it's still Friday. So there's probably going to be some more commits. So I think overall my takeaway was just the ability to resonate that vision coming off a 2-10 season. Very impressive.
So the latest flip, Tayshawn Gelsey, Michael and I did a video reaction piece that you can find once we're done here with the live stream. Extended footage of what Florida State's bringing in, the story about tight end versus wide receiver, all good stuff available here on Warchant TV. Always why you want to subscribe to the channel, because these videos will appear on your home screen. We made a lot of them today, so as you sign in over the next few days, you'll be seeing them all pop up on your home screen. Hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. This question's for both of you from Devin. What would signing day look like without the new hires? I think it's a loaded question because they didn't have much time to get on the trail, but how much impact did they make? Let's see. Michael, start with this one, and then
Okay.
Matt follow up.
I think more Gus than Tony. I don't think Tony was like. I don't see how you can make a big impact when you barely were just hired and you've already completed your weekend of visits. So I don't think Tony, but I think the name Gus, like, because Gus Malzahn is a name that people know. Like, recruits can resonate to that. I think even Ousmane said that, that he relate, like, oh man, they got Gus, and had somebody that I guess he played for him or whatever. But and it's like that one I think caught people's attention. Like, whoa, okay, that's a name. Play for a national title. Certainly knows how to beat Alabama. People don't. So you're when you do that and you're playing those teams that people would know, and especially in the Southeast, I think that was the one that gave him not to steal his little tagline with the boom, but give him a little boom as far as recruiting and certainly help. I think it was limited, but I think if you're picking one, I would pick Gus.
Yeah, Matt, I'll let you answer in a second, but it's a great point. We got a little bit of breaking news. Jayvan Boggs has been announced by Florida State. That social media post by FSU football just went out.
Guys, it's like I've been doing this for a little while. It's like, it's like I've been doing this for a while, Tom. Like, what did I say? That he would be the first one? So that's great. Yep. That's great, Jayvan. I'll be honest, like, Tom, and when I looked at every one of these recruits in the class of the targets they were going after, he was the most exciting one that I wanted just for them, from their perspective of, I just felt like that was a guy that they so desperately don't have, a guy like that, that just makes plays in so many ways. And how many times, Tom, do we talk about, man, these receivers were just not getting separation? I'm not trying to hate on the receivers they have. I think they're going to be good. Yeah. But this kid, I just fell in love when I watched him play. When I watched him play, the way he does in space, his ability to break tackles, and just a game breaker, a guy that it's just to feel like they have a lot of those guys, right now, Tom. I'm not saying they won't develop into those guys, but it just doesn't feel like there's a ton of these guys. And I think with Jayvan, I followed him. Obviously, I did the Friday Night Rewind most of the year, so I follow his stats every week, and it's just like every week it was like he's the best guy, and it's on one of the best teams in the state of Florida in his classification with Coco. And I think that speaks volume when you're playing that talent, and he does it every time. So great news for FSU football. They got a gym.
All right, so one down there in terms of those last minute
one
things.
To go.
Yeah, one to go. Florida State now working to finish up and solidify what's going on at the running back position. Before we took a break there for the breaking news, I was going to say, it's funny how time flies. I remember them doing the video in Pasadena for Florida State versus Auburn national championship game. And all the Auburn fans, when they showed the video of Gus Malzahn going boom, and they all go boom, and I'm like, oh, God. I was rolling my eyes. Life comes at you fast, even if it's 11 years later.
Full circle, man. Full circle coming back at you.
Here we go. Awesome. Noles fans yelling boom. All right, Matt. So what would this class have been without the new hires? And what did you hear from some of the players you've talked to about the new hires' presence on the trail in a span of 48, 72 hours?
I agree with Michael that I think it's a lot more Gus than Tony White. I think if they would have flipped Tavion Wallace, that I would have said a little bit more of White, just because I think Chad Simmons posted on our board that he was on the phone with him. So he was still out there talking to some guys. I'm sure he talked to Kevin Wynn as well. Maybe that was the 3 a.m. call. We don't know. But I think in general, Gus is the reason why you got Boggs in general. I think because that was one I don't think FSU was super high on until the end, when like you really had to be, even though he was always a good athlete. I mean, this kid was committed to Ohio State early on in their recruitment. I said this in the video of when he committed earlier today, that whenever a former Ohio State commit, that means he's talented. They're not going to take a guy that's not talented, especially that early on in the recruitment. So I think really, more on the offense side of the ball. You know what? Maybe Tony White kind of locked in Lofton a little bit just because of the Nebraska connection. That you can go there with that. But yeah, I think it played a role. If there was no new hires and it was just Norvell right now, I think you're looking at nothing, absolutely nothing.
Fair to say.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I'd say it's probably low.
That's how we
also. You guys want to feel old? I think I was in 6th grade for that national championship.
We move on to Peyton.
I feel old every day, so it doesn't bother me. So whatever.
How much action can we realistically expect between now and Friday, especially along the offensive line? All right, so Peyton wants to nail down the O-line. Solomon Thomas did go and choose LSU. Michael, if you want to touch on that, in large part because Florida State didn't have an offensive line coach, but other factors in there, and then general thoughts previewing between now and the end of the period for high school offensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts. It's a big loss. Massive. But, to me, I look at the Solomon Thomas recruitment like this is the consequences of your season. You were 2-10. Then you had to go in there. You had time to hire an offensive line coach, and I don't blame him. Take your time. Make sure you get the right guy. I think it's the most important hire out of any hire, even bigger than the coordinators, because it dictates so much on your team, and it is such a weakness on their team. So I'm good with what FSU did. Hey, they're going to take their time, but I also am good with what Solomon did. It's like, hey, I went to a balanced and stable situation, although Brian Kelly, it's kind of argumentative of how long he'll be there, but it just stable is what they have right now. So I understand, why Solomon did that. It just stinks for FSU just because you put so much time and it was such a belief. And I do believe that Solomon fully believed in Norvell, fully believed that that's where I think he wanted to go. But when you don't have somebody that what's going to be the future, I think you got to do what's best for you from a business standpoint. I don't think NIL was like some driving force people were mentioning. I just think really the offensive line is really just you got to have the guy there. And then I guess fast forwarding to the rest of the class, they got Sean Perot today. Is it Perrette or Perot? I don't know. Is it?
I think it's Perrette. I feel like
Perrette.
You said Perrette.
Okay, Sean Perrette. They liked him a lot. They worked him out, Tom, at the camps. They were very aware of this guy. They even won him the first time, but I think they already had their guys. And then that's kind of, to me, the replacement for Daniel Pierre-Louis that they lost to Florida. And then I think Chasten Brown's the guy that I got circled. That's the one. That's the one that I think 4-star offensive tackle. You need tackles. That's a need. You can add him in there, pair him up with Perrette, and I think if you get him, you feel, you know what? We got Mario Nash. We got these pieces. Yeah, he's not Solomon, but we at least got a very talented guy that we can certainly work with. And whoever your new offensive line coach is, he's going to be able to do the job. And here's the other thing. Now, I'm not trying to start rumors or anything, but I'm just saying there is no guarantee Solomon Thomas stays at LSU for all 4 of those years. So
right.
If you get a really good offensive line coach and he believes in Norvell, and let's say Kelly keeps struggling, you could see him back at FSU in the fold. And I think everyone would take that. I don't think it's far-fetched at all. So I think the main thing for me with FSU is get the offensive line coach hire right. Get the top guy. If you lost the guy, okay, that happens. But I think the most important thing, and I know it bothers you when a recruit analyst says it, but the hires are more important than recruiting, because they're going to dictate how long those guys are going to stay there. If your offensive line coach isn't good, those kids ain't staying anyway. So I think the biggest thing is the hire, and it's tough news, but overall, I think if they get a really top-notch hire, and I'll add this in too, Josh Petty's not signing today, Georgia Tech. That really drew me intrigued. My intrigue's a little bit different. Like, okay, is there something going on with the offensive line coach? Because he's very tight with Jeep over there, offensive line coach. So I'm kind of interested in how that dynamic works out. But overall, I just want the right hire, Tom. That's really the most important thing to me at the offensive line position.
I would be a cutthroat advisor to these players. I'd say pick a school you're going to for your first 2 or 3 years, and then we'll talk about a re-up and we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee you're going to make it to the NFL, so you might as well get 2 paydays in college. That's the way I would do it. Matt, I'm going to ask you this question first from Kurt. He's asking for both of y'all's opinions about the transfer portal and most important needs. So, Matt, go ahead. What you're seeing with the class that Florida State has, the product that we just watched on the field, and then the work that they need to do in the portal. What say you?
I think it's obvious with the trenches. Defensive line, there's a lot of guys in the portal from Nebraska, which are obviously going to be ones we turn to first with their coaches coming here. Williams is one who's very close with Pot Roast, and if Pot Roast comes here, I mean, like, literally, Pot Roast is like his dad. So I think if Pot Roast comes, like, that's almost a lock.
I gotta stop you real quick. Breaking news: Kromah official. Florida State announces.
Boom! Can I do it? Did I do it right, Gus?
No.
Love it.
Thank you very much, Director Ben. He put it in the chat, and as hell, within 56 seconds, it has 75 retweets. People were watching for this news. I think it's fair to say.
You know, Tom, it's okay to say hell in the air when you hear something like that. I've gone over Ousmane, guys. This guy is one of the best high school running backs that I've scouted. Probably the only guy that I would say that went to FSU that I've scouted better is Dalvin Cook. And that's probably the only kid. And I cannot put into words, this guy as a receiver is ridiculous, Tom, for a running back. Like, there was one point, I think as a junior, he was leading the state of Georgia in receiving. Like, I mean, so he is going to be a phenomenal weapon for whoever's playing quarterback, but he is going to be a phenomenal weapon in that passing game. And then when people watch him, the way he runs, Tom's going to get it. Tom, I'll just write this video down, because when Tom watches this guy in spring and watches or summer, wherever he gets there, Tom, I almost guarantee you will fall in love with his physicality, the way he plays, because it's a different physicality than what Cam does. And Cam says good. Cam's is good, but this guy is a different level because he's long and the body parts are longer, and it's just he's so physical.
I think everybody did this. Everybody did that. There we go. Everybody's in now.
Breathe.
A sigh of relief. All right.
You would not imagine how many texts I got about this kid from the last 2 hours. Like, it literally, my phone's been like 800 texts. Like,
friends I haven't talked to in like 2 months are like, "What's happening with Kromah?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. He committed." Like, I'm not worried about that currently. I did.
Let Michael worry about that. Don't worry about it.
There you go, Dale. Yes, there you go, Dale. There you go. Good for you in the chat. I saw James B put a big boom there. Okay, there we go. Hell yeah! So he's in there.
You got my boom, guys. That's as far as I'm going. I've never done a boom for anybody, so that's how much I think of Ousmane. And by the way, I talk about the relationship here, Tom, as well with Ousmane and David Johnson. And I said this privately to a few people. Like, I've never heard a kid talk about David Johnson the way Ousmane talked about him. I went to a game one time, and I was shocked. I was almost like kind of emotional when you heard it, but it was like, he's like, I want to be the man he is right now from an outside of football stuff. Like, I grow to want to be like him. Like, that's, as a coach, and I deal with a lot of coaches, not just FSU ones, that is the greatest compliment any recruit or player can give to a coach.
Well, and that's why recruiting still matters, in the era of NIL. Relationships still very much matter in the era of NIL. Michael, you just said it right there. I don't think he comes to Florida State as often as he has the last couple of weeks without that element too. Of course, Florida State had to have piqued his interest from an NIL perspective and from a pitch, but you don't take that call, or you don't hop in the car and go drive to Tallahassee without that kind of trust and that kind of a bond.
Yeah, and the thing I'll tie on, because I told Matt, because we're doing the chat, all day. We're chatting with each other, and Matt's like, yes, Chad thinks there's a real shot. And I'm like, I'll have to believe it when I see it. And then probably like 10 minutes later, Matt's like, time to believe it.
It wasn't even 10 minutes. It was 30 seconds. Yeah. One of my friends, I couldn't find it because it wasn't on IG Live or whatever. One of my friends texts me and goes, "Merry Flipmas!" expletive. And I'm like, what? Did it happen? And I finally found it. I'm like, yeah, you better believe it, Michael. It's here.
It was a great moment, and it was one that Tom, I've been doing it for 23 years. I'm very rarely shocked. Like, I've had 2 shock moments. One of them was not good, and me and Tom had to deal with it together. And Travis Hunter
I almost
was
said
not.
said a worse word than hell right there.
That was
That
not.
was stupid.
That was. I'm telling you, I don't know how. My mom called me up the next night. She's like, "You looked so miserable on there." Like, and it was just really tough because it was like, what do you say when you lose the number 1 player in the country? You know, it's like in the last day, even though there was a few signs here and there, but. And this is kind of the flip side of, the positive side of Ousmane doing it. Was like, I knew the relationship because I knew a lot of details within the relationship. I knew everything with the guy, but I'm like, there's no way this kid's going to choose Florida State over Georgia. They just went 2-10. So I was just, it was a positive shock. Maybe it's God's way of karma and bringing it back and say, hey, Mike, you know what? You suffered for Travis Hunter. We're going to give you something good that you guys can use today. But, I will say this last point about Ousmane is the one thing that really sold me on him, not just what I watched when I watched him play, but when I interviewed him the last time, he said, I was telling him, what do you look for in a school, Ousmane? He's like, I look for a coach that I can win and lose with because I can win with any coach, but I want to be around a coach that if I lose, I want to be around that guy. Yeah, I want to be around that guy where we're doing something outside of football, or I want to share pain with him. And the way he plays, and for people that haven't watched Lee County, like he thinks the highest of every teammate. Like even the kickers on the team, I mean, he is always supportive. He's always very in there. He's a very strong teammate guy, but he loves to win. And the thing with him is like either you win or lose. I think that was a key. I always circled that when he told me that because it's kind of like, yeah, I don't think the record was never concerning to me. It was just more like at some point, Tom, you have to say like, look, Georgia's Georgia and look at FSU. They look terrible. So I was like, they're so bad that I don't even think they can hold off that. But they kept fighting. Yak kept working on it. And then they got these hire. I really think the Gus hire was big for him for this. Like if they don't hire an offensive coordinator, I don't think they get this kid. Like if they don't get somebody like Gus.
I don't think anybody would mind if we just run some Kromah highlights while we talk for the next round. So that's what we're going to do.
Get ready for Tom to get excited, guys. Trust me, I'm telling you.
Where's the hurdle play? The hurdle play is incredible.
Well, we're going to find it all together. This is a 30-minute bit of huddle. We'll keep 5 to 10 minutes of it as we go. Kyle,
fire away.
Thank you very much for the contribution. All aboard the Gus Bus.
Yes.
Kromah's official. Thank you very much, Kyle, for the contribution. We really appreciate all of you who are bringing everything from questions. Yes, the monetary contributions are wonderful, and we appreciate that, and it helps us do more stuff, cool stuff here at Warchant. But if you're just advancing the discussion right now, continue to file those questions in. We really appreciate it. Matt, you were talking about defensive line in terms of where Florida State can go in the portal. A couple of Nebraska kids that are worth keeping an eye on. Michael, I know that you're wanting to tag in and talk about that as well. Go ahead.
That's where we were. I kind of forgot over the last few minutes. Definitely the trenches for the portal, offensive line and defensive line. Doesn't matter which side. Even with this, the guys you're getting at offensive line, this recruiting class, you're not really expecting them to make an impact right away. You don't really want freshmen to play on the offensive line right away. I know there's a center in from the Colony, Texas, who was the center at UCF. So that's one obviously to look at. I think Pitt's backup center's in. I didn't think his PFF grades were awesome, so I'm not sure if that's one to look at. I'm just remembering off the top of my head what I've seen. I think there's Texas A&M offensive lineman in. Then when you go to the defensive line, there's a lot of Nebraska guys in, a lot of then obviously that you're going to look at Florida State for first because they're going to want to follow their guy. And, the biggest one is Williams, who's very close with Pot Roast. There's an interview out there from a newscast talking about how Pot Roast is literally his dad. Like that's what he sees him as. Mm-hmm. So it'd be very hard to believe that if Pot Roast came, that kid did not come to Florida State.
Michael, James Williams is that player, I do believe. But tell me about what you see out of the portal needs for Florida State, guys to keep an eye on, all of it, whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I think there should be several from Nebraska. I hope no Nebraska fans are watching this, but probably going to be several from that team. Dimitri Butler's one that I'm really high on. Stephon Thompson's another one I'm very high on. As far as the answer to the question, can I just say everything? Can I literally say everything from the portal? Like literally, there's not a position that I don't think that they don't need to attract. I already talked to you, Tom, earlier about I think they still need experienced receivers. I think they need a quarterback. Nothing against Luke, but they need help.
Oh,
I think the biggest attack is just
That was
the
it.
offensive line, where to do what you want to do, they're going to really have to attack that offensive line. I think that's going to be the biggest one in the portal that I think they're really hammer on. I think defense will definitely do that. I think Pot Roast and Tony will really, that won't be a tougher challenge. But I think the offensive line, that's why I think it's key. Whoever you bring in, I think it's going to be a big deal. And yeah, my answer is going to be everything except kicker. Yeah, I think you've got kicker. You got the number one kicker in the country, Jake Weinberg, back. You'll have also they just signed the punter Bruno today, Bruno Reese. So you'll certainly have that group. Outside of that, guys, outside of maybe a long snapper that you probably don't have to go to the portal and get, I'm looking at every position, Tom. Like every single position, I feel like linebacker, defensive end, defensive line, receivers. You even need. I mean, Usman's good too, but I think you still need at least one running back from the portal as well. So that room just needs to get. You keep working it. So overall, my answer is everything, but I think I kind of pointed out a few places I would go.
So yeah, one thing I like about some of those Ousmane clips that are playing right now, he's a willing blocker. He's not afraid to lead the way in a 2-back set. I like that very much. I'm starting to understand, guys. Starting to get it a little bit more. And one guy who, thank you very much for the contribution. He understands it. John 23. Yes, sir. Let's go. Huge addition to the running back room. Great job, Tom, Mike, and Matt. Thank you, John. We very much appreciate your kindness.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
I got a question for both of you guys.
Uh-oh.
Which is the better young room, tight ends or running backs?
Oh, it's tight end for me. I think running back still has a lot to prove. I'm not sold on what I've seen from Singleton yet. I think there's a lot of talent. I think even Cam, there was some issues, so I think there needs to be growth there. Tom, I love Dancy. I think Dancy's going to be basically a replica of what Total Philly was. I think he does a lot of the same things. You can use him as a pass guy. He's fast as lightning, probably the fastest player on the team without question. But I think for me, that tight end room's ridiculous. Amari Williams, love that kid. I'm so happy, by the way. I can say this, that the injury is not that serious from what I hear from the people I talk to. That is phenomenal news. I love him. I love Landon. Obviously, I went to see Landon like 8 million times when he was in high school. So I love Landon and what he brings, and I just love that room. But I think the running back room will get there. But I think the tight end room is one of the best, I think, on the roster.
I have a hard time arguing all your points, Michael, for tight end, but I will say the specific player I'm most excited to watch next year and the year after is Danzy. Just because of that 0 to 60, that is world-class speed. I will tell you guys, we did this off the air, but I don't think he would mind me sharing. Dominic Robinson and I were doing a breakdown for, I forget what game. It might have been the post Clemson, because they run Danzy on a wheel in the Clemson game, and they didn't see it. You know, they threw somewhere else. Yeah. And I said, hey, do you know about this kid, this track star? He goes, no, let me see what he does. And so I showed him the wheel. He goes, oh, gee, that kid that's different. Like and Dominic knows, I mean, his son is a fantastic two-sport athlete. He knows what elite athletes look like and speed looks like. I can't wait to see what Danzy becomes in this.
Yeah, and I think the big misconception about Danzy is like he's a track kid. He's not a track kid. He's a football kid that runs track. Like him. I mean, he is a very football kid. I remember talking to Jared Hickman, who's the head coach at Florida High. He would tell me about this kid. He's like, Mike, you got to come see this kid. I'm telling you, he's a football player. You'll love him. And they do. They used him in a lot of different ways. They didn't just pitch the ball out there. Okay, Danzy, run. It was a lot of detailed stuff that they did, but my God, is his speed insane. It is just insane. Like there's like when kids call me up and tell me, what do you think my speed is? It's like, I was like, I think I run a 4.3. It's like, you don't run a 4.3. That guy runs a 4.3. That's a 4.3 right there. Like when he tests in the combine, whenever he graduates, he will probably run a 4.3. So, but yeah, he's ridiculous, Tom. I'm not surprised that's one of your favorites.
Noel Princess, welcome into the show. Says, has Gelsey officially flipped? Yes. Saw on Twitter he has. Yes. And Florida State announced, so that's all done. Thank you for coming in. Go back and check the beginning of this particular video. We do a little breakdown, but then also, Noel Princess, we've got a full breakdown Michael and I did on Gelsey, the circumstances around the recruitment. It's all available on Warchant TV. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Everybody, welcome in. A couple more contributions before we keep this conversation going. Tally to Cali. Half for Warchant, half for Ousmane's NIL package. Thank you very much.
I like it.
That's going to lead me to the next question after we get through this next thank you, which thank you very much, Just June. Is there a reason why FSU doesn't focus more on O-line, D-line for both players and coaches? It all starts with the big guys in the middle. Well, I mean, I guess you could say, what do you expect moving forward from Florida State with the new staff and their particular attitude towards it? Matt, it's been a minute, so go ahead, answer this, then Michael right after him.
I don't think it's that they don't focus on it. I just think they haven't been the best at recruiting it is the real truth of it, because they've tried to get kids, right? Like they've always swung for the fences and they just don't land them. They landed the good one today in Kevin Wynn. That's where a good start is. I'm high on Daryl Desser as well. You still have Tylon Lee, who's going to sign on Friday that you could flip. So, yes, I wouldn't say it's not a focus. I would just say they haven't landed a bunch. And I think you're going to see that change with the new staff because pot roast, Knighton, mutton chop, whatever it is like he's known as a good recruiter if he ends up here. I know it's not official yet, but if that happens, he's known as a good recruiter. I think you're going to see that change pretty fast.
Michael, your thoughts?
See, that's why I trained Matt so good. Yeah, Matt just nailed it. He nailed it, man. That's the way I want to hear. But yeah, he's right. It's not the focus. I mean, they want to do it. You've had a coach that's been here for a long time, and just call the elephant in the room, man. I mean, kids want exciting young guys that they can relate to, and not that Odell's old, but that stuff does affect you. And that they just, as Matt pointed out, they just hadn't got the job done. Now, an offensive line, I think Alex certainly recruited very well and focused on that, but just didn't work out from a production player, performance standpoint. Just wasn't good. But I don't think that's going to be a problem with a guy like Pot Roast, because for everything I've got in my research of checking on just both Tony White and him, both really good recruiters, both solid recruiters. And I think his personality, from what I hear, is really infectious from what I hear about Pot Roast. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think that's a thing that maybe they haven't had as much, because you got more of a younger guy to kind of go in there and give a little more energy. So I think that'll add a lot more to their, defensive line recruiting. Not to take anything from Odell. That's my dude. Love Odell. Great guy. Incredible person. One of the best persons I've ever met, that's coached at FSU or just in general. But you just need that mixture, I think, when you have younger guy, like that, that's more personality, where Odell's more laid back and chill. I think that's good.
I got a question for Matt, and then Michael, I got a big picture question for you right after that.
Uh-oh.
In terms of, this is more of a technical one, Matt, what do you know about early enrollees, January guys? And is there a master list for it, or just a general list of guys that will be in for the spring semester?
Off the top of my head, I can't really tell you because it's been a long day. But that's something that's going to be coming soon. I know a lot of them. Yeah. I think in general, most of them are. When you sign in the early period, more often than not, they do early enroll. I know there's a few like Chaston Brown who hasn't signed, but FSU's kind of trending for. Now that Gus is here and he got that offer, he has to play basketball, so he's not enrolling early. Tylen Coleman, the JUCO guys, I believe are. I think those are the guys I can say off the top of my head. I assume Kevin Sperry is. Again, that's a coming soon when after today, as we get closer to spring semester starting, we'll text all the guys. We'll have that list out for you.
That's a good point.
I'm so glad that Matt got that question and I didn't. Like, I'm just nothing personal, Brett, but Matt nailed it, so it's good. Yeah, we'll have it later, guys. Just give us a day or two to kind of recycle, and we'll get to it, and we'll give you a list of guys.
So here's the big picture question. I'm going back to Tally to Callie's contribution. He says half for Ousmane's NIL package.
See, I just want to say before you get to that, Tom, this guy's very efficient with his money. So he knows how to manage money really well. If you're throwing $10 and you're doing it efficiently to equal, I like that. That's good. You're good with money, Tally.
Well, and also you're helping me do the show, Tally, because the question I wanted to ask tonight before we were done was the Battle's End's presence. I get it's going to change next year with the congressional settlement, and the collectives may still be involved. I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as Director Alford does, where it's like, oh, it's just the NFL salary cap and there's nothing else needed. I don't think it's going to be that clean, but it's going to be very different. It's fair to say.
Yes.
So this last go around before the settlement goes through in April, Michael, just what do you think about the Battle's End and what they were able to do today? Because anytime I see flips for a team that didn't come off a good season, I think what gives behind the scenes. So what do you have to say about that part of it?
Shout out Ingram. Ingram, if you're listening, you guys were phenomenal. You did a great job all year. That's a difficult situation. I think Ingram had a tweet that was really good that I liked. They had a tough year. I mean, it isn't just tough on the football coaches and the football program. It's tough on the Battle's End, and I think they did a phenomenal job. And I think it's going to soar now because now you're adding exciting coaches. Now we need to see what they do at wide receiver. We need to do what they do at offensive line coach, and then whatever other changes they do. But that ignites people when you feel like your money is going something really fruitful. And I think people see that, and I think today is kind of a really good example of that. And I know it'll never stop it because it's like every time they lose a recruit, it's like like FSU's broken, they don't have any money, or Battle's End doesn't have any money. It's like that's never the case, guys. They're competitive, and I think with all this has happened, I think it's going to make them extremely competitive. Tom, I'm not going to say no, they're never going to be the top, whatever you call it, group, but I think they're going to be very competitive. And I think what FSU does, the way they do it, or I should say FSU, but Battle's End, the way they do it is the way they measure relationships and value of money, of what you are. And I think some of them, we've seen that, that's not the case. You don't have that relationship stuff that we talk about, but I think the mixture in there. But I will say, I want to see a more aggressive group this year from the staff of how they aggressively go after high school kids. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you got these guys and it was a great close and all that stuff and just block that out. The aggressiveness in high school recruiting has to be there and much better than what I saw, a year ago, Tom. I think that is hopefully something that will be there.
Jay Dean, the answer is yes. Welcome in. Look, if people have schedules, they just get done with dinner, they pop on, they go to Facebook. Oh, these guys are talking about it. Did we officially sign Kromah? Yes, it happened about 20 minutes ago. It is officially official. Florida State has confirmed it. That's how you know it has gone the distance. All right. Last 10 minutes we have here, just to the 1,300 plus on YouTube. Thank you very much for being here. Over 3,000 of you across all the places that we stream. Very much appreciate you being involved in what we do here at Warchant TV. Give us a look at warchant.com. Go over right now. Give a look at the Premium Recruiting Board. Take a look at the Tribal Council. Both are incredibly busy forums because we've got recruiting, portal, and coaching change. All kinds of nuggets flying everywhere on warchant.com. And sign up if you haven't. We have great introductory offers. Let us earn your business. We aren't here without the largest FSU fan community in the business. We don't exist without you all. So join the team. Join us here at Warchant, won't you please? A couple more questions before we sign off. Dynasty things. Wondering about Jesse Harold, a.k.a. LaJesse Harold as well, depending upon where you look in recruiting services with his name. But this is the defensive end / edge rusher that decommitted from LSU. Right. What's the latest there? Michael first, then Matt.
I think I think in a few days, I think it'll be in that 2 more day frame that he'll probably do something. That's kind of what I've been hearing. No, I think they want to get it done. I think FSU will push to get it done because they don't want, as I pointed out last night, Michigan is a team that could get involved, and I don't think they want to go that route where you wait till February. But I think this is one where they're trying to get that done. I think they're the favorite. They've already got a pick in for them. So I think that's one that kind of need to get it done now, or it gets more hairy if you wait until February.
Matt, same. I'm assuming you probably concur with that opinion.
Yeah, pretty much dead on. Because he tweeted that he was going to roll early, and if you're going to roll early, you have to sign within these 3 days. So It should come within the next 3 days. The only thing I'd be a little worried about is when we asked him about other teams outside of Moore after his visit, he kind of said, like, we'll see. You guys will find out if so. So we're very confident in FSU, but if anything pops up, it pops up.
And we'll
until it's done, you don't know. By the way, guys, before we get to these final questions, give Tom a shout out. It's like Tom don't get a lot of love here because Tom mentioned to me earlier today, you know what, Mike? You know what would be really cool is if these guys got confirmed signings while we were doing the show. Tom said that, guys. I'm not lying. I swear you can share the text. I don't care. It was there. Tom told me, and it's like, sure enough, Tom. Boom, man. There it is.
That's my contribution. Jeff came on the air at 1:10 p.m. before Simmons and Wilfong talked about it. Said, I think we might get that Kromah kid. And I'm in the segment on the air with him. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Come on, man. Don't dip your waters into recruiting. That's not your – and then, boom, they let you a little bit later.
Now he's going to be all on it now.
There'll be no living with him, Michael.
Yeah,
be thankful you don't have to be on the air for 3 hours with him tomorrow. It's going to be a parade.
Did he make the call at around 7:30 to get him to actually sign the papers? He was like, "Come on, Kromah, like, let's get it going. Like, we're waiting too long here." Like, is that what happened?
Maybe he did. He sent me an emoji of pancakes, and I didn't understand what it was at the time, but that's probably what it meant. And all right, the pancakes have been served. I will say this: it has been a fun day, and you know who's picking up on that is Lawan Brunson, who says, "I haven't seen Michael this fired up in 3 years."
Okay.
So I'm gonna piggyback on that. Ask Matt this question, then Michael, you can weigh in. No-Tell says, "How much better is this class than we expected?" Because look, it's a top 30 class as it stands right now, but it just feels nicer to close strong on a signing day. Matt, what did you think about today and where the class is relative to when you woke up this morning?
I mean, I said multiple times this class was dead. Multiple times. I think on like every video I went on that we talked about it. So yeah, the 10 times better than we thought it was going to be. At one point, we thought there was a possibility of 5 kids being in the class. So it's been from when the staff got fired up until now, it's been a huge transition, and it's been a huge win for Florida State. I saw Chad and Wiltfong and all them guys talking about it on the On3 Live. Florida State needed the season to end. That is what they needed to get momentum, because it's hard to get momentum when you're losing. You can say all these positive stuff to a kid and think it's going well, but then you lose, and you lose a lot of it. So now that you don't have that, it's all positive. We just got this guy. Look how good this coach is. This guy coached for a natty. Oh, look at this guy. He had one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, which is a better conference than ours. So like you could say all these things, and you got, dude, this guy's name is Pot Roast. How cool is that? So it's like there's a bunch of positive stuff that I think that the season just needed to end.
Yeah, Michael, your thoughts when you woke up this morning versus where we are now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think anybody that covers recruiting, especially me that have done it for a while, there's no way you're not pretty surprised about what happened. Me and Matt talked about it, week by week and day by day, and it was like we were thinking like, okay, how many can they realistically sign in this class? And it was like sometimes it would go to single digits, and it's like now what they have like 17 kids they've signed or something like close to that. Yep. It's so much astronomically better than I anticipated. I was mainly hoping for them as far as maybe, hey, some of these guys will stick. They'll be able to finish the recruitments out, and you can go from there. And it's like even when you lose in Solomon Thomas, it's like because of what you did for the totality. I don't even think it's like, where people are like devastated, where if you lost Solomon and you didn't get all these guys that you got, I think it'll be a much different conversation. But I think overall, I think these coaches worked their tails off, and I think they knew they got into a time frame where, they had to listen to people tell them how terrible their team was, how historically it's the worst team in FSU history and all this stuff for so long. And then finally, you've got new coaches in there, and there's a new energy about it. And I love the stuff that Norvell said in the presser for the recruiting, early guys they signed for the first day. Just the stuff he said was basically, you can see like a renewed, like, you know what you saw before, that's not happening again, and I'm not going to allow it to happen again. And I think that was kind of the message, like basically like the players want to be here, they're going to be here, but there's a standard. And I think it's him responding to what the standard is. And I think that started with the old flag throwing the flag away at Florida game. And I was more, everyone was excited about the flag throw. I was more excited about what he did when Napier came up to talk to him. He's like, no, I ain't having that, dude. I'm
Yeah,
not talking to you. I have nothing to say to you. Peace out. Like that, I think that excited fans more than just the flag throw. I mean, flag throw is like whatever, but I think the response to that, like, no, I'm not going to allow you and your kids to go in there and embarrass our kids and just sit there. I'm just going to go, oh yeah, good game, whatever. Yeah, I think he didn't take that, and I think he stood up for FSU, and that's probably the first times I've seen where there was fire where he's actually standing up for FSU, where it's a poppable moment. I'm sure there's other moments, but to me, I think that's a signature moment for Mike Norvell. If the thing does turn around and they surge and they fix this stuff with all the new coaches, I think that's going to be a moment that I think a lot of fans remember. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some recruits that watch that and they're like, you know what? That's a coach I want to play for.
Yeah.
He's going to fight for his team. So I think that was a very big moment, even though it was a really, really tough night and a tough season. I think overall their response in recruiting in the last few weeks and even the hires, great job by Michael Alford so far, and I'm sure they got more. I think everyone from the FSU Standards really responded. Mike Norvell always talks about the response. Well, I think they answered the response in a big way with what we've seen the last few weeks.
It was a feisty press conference on Saturday after the Florida game. You could see the look in his eyes. It was like that kind of steely, insane look that he had when he was yelling at Tate at a spring game a long time ago. And that same look in his eye about the future. And first steps are being taken right here. Paul, thank you very much for the contribution. Michael, one of your biggest critics, but have a whiskey drink on me. You earned it, bud. I suppose that could be Matt, too. You guys have the same initials. Anyway, enjoy your whiskey on Paul. Thank you very much for the contribution there. Okay, last question for business, and then we have fun for a minute, and we say goodnight. Does February bring anything extra, asks Jason. What do you think? Matt first, then Michael.
Two guys possible. Chaston Brown. And maybe Teddy Hoffman. Right now, he's set to sign on Friday, but he had told me originally that it could move back to February. I would think he signs on Friday. I think that's more likely. But I think that you're looking at Chaston Brown for February. And maybe there's one like 3-star that they try to pick off or something. But in general, I think it's just Chaston Brown.
All right, Michael?
Yeah, there's always a few more. And there could be some kids that are hanging around that they've had on their radar that we aren't even talking about. That are a position that maybe they feel like, you know what, I'm going to go in there and do it. I wouldn't say a lot, Tom, because of what they did today and what they're going to do in the next 2 days. Say they get a Tylon Lee or somebody else, and say this thing expands to like 17 or 18. Yeah, it's probably going to be like only 1 or 2, and then the rest will be, portal free. But man, is that good to say that I did not think I would be saying 17 or 18 for this early signing period. So I think, but that's kind of what I think, going into those final few days.
So I want to say behind the scenes thank you to Director Ben Spicer, who has also been doing a lot of work today in terms of social media, graphics work. He's producing tonight's program. If you found some of our content on podcast networks or those RSS feeds, that's Director Ben Spicer at work. If you said, that's a cool graphic, oh my God, we got Kromah. Look at this bright red graphic that caught my attention, and now I know that we have a new running back in the fold. That's Director Ben Spicer.
Look at it, right on cue.
Right on cue. He does excellent work behind the scenes. Our staff behind the scenes as well. Everybody pitches in and helps each other on a day like signing day. Aslan Hajavandi, awesome, hosting all the videos that you see today on Warchant TV. I know that there's a great video of you guys talking about Sperry, the quarterback, the three of you guys. That's available on the channel right now. A lot of work behind the scenes from Aslan. Ira, of course, is the managing editor. Even though he's more team and you read columns about team stuff with Ira, he's been everywhere today. The phone is, I think that's the, other than Michael, maybe the most traffic my phone has got has been from Ira. So outstanding work there. And then to the two guys on the top of the screen here, awesome work. Y'all aren't done. I know that. But here's the question. What Florida Man in Alabama wants to know. Will Matt and Michael be partaking in Don Julio shots after today's hard work? Go ahead.
I am 100% sure. I'm 100% sure Matt is.
I'll do it right now. I have it right here. It's Casamigos. I don't do Don Julio. I said it because I was messing with them earlier on the Jeff Cameron show of like, I'll do shots if this day goes well. And I think if it went bad, I would still do them anyway, just because the day's over. But Yeah, and so Jeff said he would do it. I hope he's doing it as well. But
there you go. All right, so Michael, how do you unwind while Matt says cheers and slams a shot?
I'm actually going to show my wife some attention, like she hasn't had any attention in like 3 days. So we'll eat some dinner and relax. But I want to take this time to really thank our entire staff. I don't think people truly realize like our team works so much together with a lot of people are doing different roles that, you know, sometimes it's not their role. Like I'll get coaching stuff or I'll get team stuff and I'll help Ira whatever I can do. And I think Ira consistently does. I think you pointed out he is everywhere, and he's phenomenal with, you know, make sure all the content and everything is where it needs to be, and just helping in general, listening to our stupid texts throughout the day and recruiting and still dealing with it. And then you know, obviously Gene does a great job managing everything with the site. But I think our team in general, and Aslan, Jeff, everyone, I think I cannot thank everyone enough, because there's everyone that had a part in it. So I don't want to leave anybody out that really contributed to this coverage that we give you. We want to make sure we give you the best coverage and the most up to date, where it's list or stuff leading up to the signing day, and then signing day today with the live updates. I think I am very pleased, and I'm like, people say this because I'm very hard on myself. I'm very critical of just, hey, could I done something else? And I think today I can't think of anything that I would do differently. And I think as a whole, as a staff, kudos, man. Everyone did a fantastic job.
So I have a funny story about today. When Ousmane was kind of flowing, we're like, this could happen. I had talked to, so when he walked out on Sunday and was carrying the papers, and I was like, those are signing papers. I was like, you know, I texted Ira, I was like, you know, what if we hear stuff like maybe I can go up there at around 11:45, and I'm like, should I get in the car now? Like, is there, like, should I really go? I obviously didn't end up going, but I was like really close to just changing and just getting in the car and driving up to Lee County. Didn't seem like he was very talkative afterwards, if you've seen the video, so maybe it wouldn't have been worth it anyway. But that was close to happening at one point.
Let's see.
How ironic is that point, by the way, that Matt mentioned the signing papers?
I know
we're
waiting,
and that's article. What we waited on, the final minute.
I edited that article. I was like, oh, okay, look at him. He was looking to see what he's carrying out the building. I like that.
Nice.
That's the intrepid reporting. So it's been a heck of a day. Stay tuned to warchant.com. If you have a question that has not been answered, head over to the Premium Recruiting Board. We try to get to as many as we possibly could tonight. Awesome work by these guys. And again, everybody breathe a sigh of relief. If you're just joining, you're like, oh, God, I missed it. Well, it's YouTube. You can go back. You can watch the very beginning of it. But here's what we're feeling. Because Kromah's paperwork has been filed and Boggs' paperwork has been filed. So Florida State makes a good day out of it. They had a good day today, and we hope you enjoyed all the coverage here. Hit the like button on Warchant TV's video underneath if you're on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. For Director Ben behind the scenes, for Michael, for Matt, my name is Tom, and for the entire staff at warchant.com, we thank you for tuning in. Make sure now we hand it off to Corey Clark. He'll paint the picture of how he sees it all going down. It's going to be positive tomorrow on Wake Up Warchant. Gene Williams with coaching nuggets tomorrow morning on the Tribal Council. Jeff Cameron Show at 1 o'clock. All right, I'm done promoing. Good night, everybody. Michael, go have dinner with your wife.
Got it.
See you guys. Have a good night.